Breaking on the wheel became widely used all over Europe, especially in Germany and France. Breaking on the wheel involved binding the nude victim, man or woman, flat or upright on a giant wooden wheel. As the wheel was rotated, several executioners wielding heavy metal clubs and hammers smashed the victim's limbs, joints, and skull. This brutal method would eventually be replaced by a new mechanical device, which was supposed to be quick and painless. Next, the strange story of the guillotine. On a hot August day in 1788, France's high executioner Charles-Henri Sanson ascended the scaffold to carry out the execution of a man by breaking on the wheel. The assembled mob of onlookers suddenly rushed the scaffold and freed the condemned man. The scaffold and wheel were smashed and set on fire. When news of the riot reached the palace, King Louis XVI, now sensing the impending revolt, granted the prisoner a full pardon and abolished the wheel throughout France. 3 years later, after the fall of the Bastille, the National Assembly sought a new execution method to be used on all people sentenced to death, regardless of rank or class.
Ever since the time of the French Revolution, people have decided that capital punishment should be the end of life, as opposed to infliction of pain.
A committee was formed. At its head was Dr. Antoine Louis, physician to the king and secretary to the Academy of Surgery. Also on the committee was Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine, a professor of anatomy at the Faculty of Medicine in Paris. Guillotine and the others had been influenced by earlier beheading machines, such as the Scottish Maiden, the Italian Mania, and the Halifax Gibbet.
It was a very crude guillotine of the time. The blade, it was not sharp, it was more just a big metal chunk, and it would knock the head off or crush the neck.
Sketches and plans were submitted. 2 major improvements were the result. First was a convex or crescent-shaped blade. The second was the lunette, little moon, a hinged 2-part yoke which immobilized the victim's neck.
The guillotine was invented with the notion that the blade would quickly sever the head with absolute assurance, and it was believed at the time that that would end life instantly.
The crescent shape was soon replaced by an angular blade. According to one historian's account, this sloping blade design was the idea of the king himself, Louis XVI. Upon seeing the sketches, the king, an amateur locksmith, well known for his mechanical aptitude, insisted that the shape of the convex blade was all wrong. Grabbing a pen, the king sketched in a triangular blade with a beveled edge. He contended that this blade would cut much cleaner and could accommodate virtually any size neck. These elements were incorporated into the final design. The new machine was tested on cadavers and cattle, and finally deemed ready to be put into service. On April 25th of 1792, the first man to die under its blade was a thief and assassin named Jacques-Nicolas Pelletier. The crowds marveled at the machine's deadly speed and precision. Soon a steady stream of victims would be hauled up the scaffold to meet the new modern machine. 9 months after the first guillotine execution, the king and his wife, Marie Antoinette, would experience firsthand the effectiveness of the sloping blade design. Ironically, the name of the man who had contributed the least to the design of the machine was the name it would carry throughout history. But it would be long after the French Revolution that the guillotine's bloodiest chapter would be written. In 1933, Hitler celebrated his rise to power with the construction and testing of his first guillotine. So impressed was he by its function that he ordered 20 more constructed and pressed into immediate service. In addition to the millions murdered by gas and machine guns, Nazi records seized after the war testify that between 1933 and 1945, 16,500 people were murdered by Hitler's headsmen, whereas execution by guillotine during the French Revolution totaled only 2,600. The last public guillotining in France occurred in 1939, with the execution of serial killer Eugène Weidmann. The event was secretly recorded on film. When images from the film were published, the guillotine was moved behind prison walls. The last use of the French guillotine was in 1977. In the early 1980s, all capital punishment was abolished in France.